Tony, it is great to be here. What a wonderful celebration. What a great way to kick off your tenure in the New York State Assembly. And I want to thank the community for electing Tony Simone to the State Assembly and for reaffirming that democracy, in fact, can result in the best people rising to elective office. I need that affirmation because I live in George Santos's congressional district. North Shore, Long Island, we think we're very smart out there, right? And we've elected some legendary members of Congress. So it's a good laugh line, but let me tell you, it's depressingly serious. And what does it say about our democracy that here on the West Side, you can elect Tony Simone and all these great colleagues who are here, and out where I live, we elected someone like George Santos. What it really tells us is that the fight is still on, and that, in fact, there's a lot we take for granted in our politics. I know on the West Side, you tend to take it very seriously, and I give you credit for that. But boy, we have a lot to learn with where not just our country is headed, but really where our state is headed. And that's why it's so important that we have Tony now representing you in the State Assembly. You all, yes, right? You are all well familiar with his accomplishments, his record, his achievements, his experience. We know each other, I don't know how many decades, a long time. I'd forgotten that you went to Hofstra also. I went to Hofstra, the Harvard of Hempstead, Hofstra University. Now, of course, I only got 1 degree out of it, you got 2, so overachiever already. But I think when you look at Tony's experience as a staffer, as a community activist, working in the nonprofit sector, I mean, those are all incredible qualifications to really hit the ground running and to be an extraordinary member of the State Assembly. Serving the state legislature is a great experience. I had the privilege to do it for 20 years. And it is a place where you can make a difference. It's not always easy to make a difference, though. And what I would ask you as constituents of this community, I know you have high hopes for him, and I know he's going to live up to your expectations and probably exceed them. But don't think he's going to be able to win every single battle that you're sending him to Albany to fight. And when perhaps he has to come home and maybe some of the things he was hoping to do he couldn't quite get done, or maybe everything you wanted in the budget isn't there, don't give him a hard time. Just know he's fighting for you. Cover his back at every turn, okay? That's very, very important. Because you know he's right on all the issues, and he's left on all the issues, and he's going to be there for you. And to Tony, let me say this to you. When I first was elected to the State Assembly, similar to you, I was following a legendary member of the state legislature, who Dick Godfrey will remember, Jerry Nadler will remember, May Newberger. May Newberger was a force of nature. She was a woman legislator at a time that there were very few, and she was incredibly well regarded, and a lot of folks were sad to see her retire. She went on to run for other offices after she didn't retire for very long. But I remember speaking to her after I was elected. I said, how could I possibly live up to the legacy that you've left? And it's got to be a bit intimidating to follow Dick Godfrey after 5 decades of service. And I remember what she said to me, and I would convey this to you. She said, you know, the seat is now yours. Put your stamp on it. Do it your way. Don't try to do it my way. The people elected you to represent them. You're about today and you're about the future. And that's the advice I would give you as well. Dick has a long shadow. He may not be that tall, but he's got a long shadow. Don't worry about that shadow. Just do it your way, Tony, because that's very much what everybody wants you to do. Anything that we could do to help you from the Comptroller's office besides signing your paycheck, I'm very happy to do that, and I offer that. And I've been asked to do the most difficult task. The easy task is saying nice things about Tony Simone and wishing him well. The hard task that I have is that I'm supposed to call forward the legend who is in our midst. Now, how do I do any kind of introduction for Dick Godfrey in front of his hometown crowd when you all could introduce him more effectively than I can? Although I do know Richard for a long time, because when I arrived to Albany, he was one of the senior members 30-something years ago. So is it 52 years altogether? 52 years. So thinking actuarially, Tony, you probably could tie it or beat that record. I'd be pushing it, but maybe people are living a lot longer. If there's a celebration when you exceed Dick Godfrey's record, I won't be there. I would be, I think, 120 or so. So I apologize in advance for missing your celebration of breaking through Dick Godfrey's record. But you all know Richard Godfrey is born and bred New York City, Manhattan. Went to Stuyvesant High School with now Congressman Jerry Nadler and with Dick Morris. Do I assume you hung out more with Jerry Nadler than with Dick Morris? Is that fair? Or more? Okay. Well, we won't get into that. Tish James, I think you need to do an investigation here on that, on those relationships. But Richard, as you know, holds the record for service in the state assembly, state legislature, both. For New York, and obviously one of the longest serving members of a state legislature in the entire history of the United States of America. Isn't that incredible? So, in some ways, the easy part is the longevity, right? Because you knew him well, he served his constituents well back home. Of course, he was always getting reelected. What, to me, is more impressive is when you look at the record of achievement, the legislative record that's there. You know, several of us have served with Dick and know Dick well, and I was just reflecting on so many of the truly impactful pieces of legislation that have been enacted in the state of New York. Dick Godfrey was certainly not only a part of, but was a leader on behalf of so many of those very, very important issues. Clearly, his greatest impact has been in the area of healthcare, which continues to be an issue that we're grappling with as a nation. But when you look at the successes in New York, on programs like Child Health Plus, Family Health Plus, issues of access to quality health care, forerunners to what was done on the national level with Obamacare, it was Dick Godfrey that was leading the way and making New York a model and the standard for the rest of the country to follow, and that's still the case. That's still the case. For the LGBTQ community, the first piece of legislation for marriage equality. Dick Godfrey was the champion of that. Before, it was something that everybody understood needed to be done. Throughout the terrible scourge of HIV/AIDS, it was Dick Godfrey who was the one always fighting for funding to deal with that issue. And I know on Long Island with our AIDS programs, you were the person that were always there championing for communities all across our great state, all across our great state. Women's health, women's right to choose, patient autonomy, healthcare proxy legislation. I mean, this is the stamp of Richard Godfrey on the laws and the history of New York State. It's benefited all of us in so many ways that there are probably so many New Yorkers that have no idea that this was the man that made the difference. I had the privilege to chair the Environment Committee for a number of years. Deborah Glick now chairs that. Richard Godfrey is one of the strongest environmental voices that we had in the state legislature, always fighting for funding, always fighting for our parks, Hudson River Park and beyond that. I mean, you just go down the long list of issues and causes where we needed a progressive voice, and Richard Godfrey was always there. He was a progressive before we called it a progressive, right? He kind of invented that, and he was always a beacon of hope and of inspiration and of strength. When Richard stood up on the floor of the assembly, we all were quiet and we all listened because he had a lot of important things to say. So, Richard, in calling you up, we all owe you a debt of gratitude. First and foremost, this community that you love and that you've represented. But I think for all of us in New York State, what you have done, the mark that you've left, the example that you've set for all of us is just incredible. My only regret about your retiring, I'm happy for you personally, and certainly job well done for your constituents, but as trustee of the pension fund, the kind of payout that we have to do now for his pension after 52 years, And what some of you don't know, Dick and I were talking about it, those of you in public service, you know about tiers. Richard Gottfried started before there were any tiers. He's pre-tier 1, true. People don't even realize that there was something before tier 1. It's Richard Gottfried, he's before tier 1. But all that being said, all of your pensions are in good shape, don't worry about it. So how about, I know you've stood up for him once, but how about once again, how about a standing ovation for the Honorable Richard Gottfried?